Morning, everyone. Today we are going to look at another ways of reading cities, representing cities. As we move into more and more complex way of understanding cities, representing cities, drawing cities, we will find that the previous layers that we have learned are also important in terms of understanding the current mode of reading cities. So today we are going to discuss spatial network, space distribution and urban experience. So there are three channels. You can see it in the title itself. Network which is established through space, network that is established through the function, and network that is established through experience. There are three different things, but they often are overlapped and very often they are entangled. So first, let's understand where we are. What have we covered? If you look at the slide, we have covered 4 lectures of different kind, looking at different ways of reading cities. Morphology we did last time, visual thing we have done it first, perceptual we have done, spatial network we have done. Now we are looking at a functional logic of reading cities, and these are the linkages, network and urban life, and how really various aspects which are supposed to be functionally organized, how they are linked in use, how networks are established, and how that urban life, urban experience that are attached to it. So this is a very important part, which is perhaps a extension of space syntax understanding of cities. So this is just a kind of a some of the keywords that we are familiar with now. All of you must have understood, all of you must have started looking at these keywords with respect to various maps of various cities or wherever you are. So space syntax is something that we are going to carry it forward and look at network theory in that reflection. However, as I said, each of these aspects that we have learned are related to what we are doing it today. So urban network analysis is a kind of a toolbox that that especially urban designers and planners use to do spatial analysis. And this spatial analysis constitute understanding of morphology, understanding of grains, understanding of functional distribution, and slowly you begin to establish various network situation in the given fabric. So what you see in a diagram is a very abstract, very simpler way of making that same morphology drawing in a network mode. And if you overlap this on the morphology network, you will understand that the green dots are the public realm, or green dots are often buildings, and the black lines are the one which establishes the connection. And this connections actually talks about the functional interdependency, spatial interdependency, or various social and cultural interdependency. And you will find a different ways of looking at the same fabric in a more complex understanding. In this analysis, the only aspect which is not really covered or articulated is a types of building edge. It means building may have a cohesiveness. It means building may have similar language. Building may have a different language. So those aspects are not covered in this presentation. But if you start adding that layer, you will get a more complex understanding of the network analysis. So UNA is a toolbox through which you begin to understand different ways of reading cities. Very simpler method of doing a urban form analysis. You can see there are 13 different ways that at least this drawing talks about. These are not the only ways. There are many other ways. So simple thing like how do you draw a diagram of any area or a small town or a city through ecology, or let's say how do you simply draw through a path and roads, or maybe what are the anchor buildings. Now these are all different ways of making same map. They are delayered, but once you overlap, you will understand a true urban form character of the city. So anything, you talk about, let's say public parks or BRTs or ownership map, you will find a strange understanding how they are negotiated. BRT is negotiated with the ownership of various public land, private lands. Parks also negotiates the way BRTs are laid, and and this is way in which a lot of urban transformations are carried out, and this kind of a network analysis helps in locating the least compromised way of putting a new layer of infrastructure in the city. For example, Mumbai Metro, the way they have to negotiate with various existing infrastructure, network, ecology, and you can see a very complex ways of setting the new infrastructure in the city. So what you see, the diagram is what we have seen earlier in figure ground lecture, in a linkage lecture. You will find this is the same diagram, but we are using little different kind of analysis. One which gives a functional distribution, the second gives you a vista or a linkages, third gives you a sense of place, because we are talking about a three-dimensional quality of buildings, important buildings, the character of the buildings. So network centrality is about locating interesting urban phenomena, its interdependency with this secondary urban phenomena. It's also help in locating important buildings and buildings which are dependent on important buildings. It also helps you to locate energized conditions where local commerce happen. It helps you locate the distribution of vehicular traffic. It helps you in understanding the density distribution. So this toolbox allows you to do a kind of a spatial configuration of cities, how city is functioning. Very often this functioning of cities are quite independent of the way they are programmed, because social economic realities, they take over those the earlier planning intention, and they are negotiated, and very often one has to look at how city is appropriated, and perhaps that's the best way to plan new infrastructure, new amenities, new urban phenomena by looking at the existing usage. So urban network analysis allows you to develop a new framework of representing cities. It is not just representing cities, it also means that how relationship among various urban components they come about. How are they linked? What kind of interdependency they have? What is the intensity of that interdependency? All these aspects you will be able to understand. So there are three components, three elements. One is the link. Basically, link is a very simple term, how two things are connect. Second is node, where how various links they crisscross and forms a important pause point or energized conditions. Very often links need not intersect, and still you have a very nodal activities at some important building. For example, public building in a linear street, you will find energized condition. You'll find energized conditions at the public transport systems. Various kind of things happens around that particular situation. And this is the where you'll find the third point, which is buildings, which is how buildings become a destination point for various movement pattern, transportation of goods, or even the informations are shared. So building becomes a larger destination point, pause points in this network analysis. So through these three terms, we look at very important part of this toolbox is proximity and adjacencies. Either in terms of space, or in terms of people, or in terms of places. Buildings are designed, places they come about. Places are the phenomena which happens once people appropriate that space. So we look at 5 components, which is a reach, gravity, betweenness, closeness, and straightness. These are the 5 components through which you do the urban analysis, urban network analysis, and it gives you a sense of understanding that what was programmed, planned, and how they are appropriated, and what kind of places and spaces are created. To give you example, for example, your festival in the city. The festival in the city are almost like a places and spaces are appropriated and they are celebrated. So there are what we call it temporary energized conditions are created in a very peculiar way in the city. They are not programmed. There is no space functionally assigned, but still they come about. So this is a very important part of city, where it kind of creates that sense of gravity, suddenly, and space or place becomes energized. So the first condition is the reach. It's a measure the number of destination around, each building. So every building has a certain sense of geographical centrality, and then it has a certain sense of connectedness. Now, very often geographical centrality is important, but not necessarily always the condition. Sometimes buildings on edge conditions, due to certain constraint, they formed a network in another direction, and this building becomes a very important reach situation because of its function, because of its prominence. For example, in our locality, where our institute is, you will find all the institutional setups are kind of a reach, kind of a because of its prominence, because of its function, because of it's related to certain age group, and of course the walkability becomes a very important part of this. So when you start drawing diagram, you can see the second diagram at the lower left corner, the network radius. It means it has created a certain radius of activity, which is group of buildings sharing perhaps same function, or perhaps have an interdependent function, and they form a very important part of that cluster. Or a second diagram, right hand side bottom corner, has a certain nodal activity where you find certain transportation network, intersects, and node becomes important. In a situation like that, you'll find buildings may have a different function, but slowly they tend to become more homogeneous over a period of time because of the way the node is being shared by the group of buildings. Gravity and betweenness is a very important part. Now, when you look at gravity, it's a spatial pull, how these two buildings are pulled together. This situation happens when there is a strong functional dependency. That's one criteria. Second criteria, because these two buildings or two group of nodes or group of buildings along two nodes have a similar character, or they have a prominence in terms of the history. You will find this situation in old part of the city, where you have two distinct bazaars, two distinct nodes happening through bazaar. This is from a historic perspective. But if you look at from the suburban perspective, you can use this diagram of gravity, perhaps from the point of view, let's say two transportation nodes. And if these two transportation nodes are detached by some space in between, it creates a very important between condition, betweenness. It creates a sense of centrality because there is a temporal market forming, there is a important bazaar formations, retail character, all kind of things that happen between this spatial pool. This spatial pool also may be two important religious functions, or two important nodes from the community perspective. So you can define this spatial pool based on various parameters, depends on the situation. So gravity is something where two or many nodes are pulled together. So once these two nodes are pulled together, there is a thick in between condition, which is a very strong market or strong thoroughfare, you can call it, But you can also see the blue line is extending out on other direction. It's not as thick, but it also creates a secondary pull and secondary between condition. So centrality is slowly getting, dispersed from central to outside, which is very true in a historic core where bazaar formations becomes secondary functions in surrounding areas, and you find ancillary shops, they emerge, through the centrality, and they become dependent on the gravity of the first condition. So this diagram becomes a very important analytical tool to understand how functional interdependency of the situation comes about. Of course, gravity also depends on the distance. Gravity also depends on the geography and various other factors. Closeness and straightness. Now, if you look at the gravity into the second layer of analysis of closeness, the closeness is a physical closeness. Closeness is also about the shortest route. Now, this is important because shortest route is something which is more public domain, more public oriented. People find shortest route. And straightness, which is a very efficient way of looking at diagramming cities, because it talks about the functionality. It's something that you experience every day. But very often when you travel from train station to your destination, you will find this shortest route. The shortest routes are where you will find very important, temporal markets, informal activities, because it has a time and people use that route, on different times. The intensity occurs at different time. So here again, you need to, when you talk about closeness and straightness, you need to insert the scale of time. How scale of time changes the character of these two conditions. So I'm using this diagram which I used earlier, where you will find various components of the city. You look at your own towns, wherever you belong to, you find very important aspects of your city. For example, if you talk about Indian cities, very important function is everyday life. They are part of us. Temporary life, temporary activity. And another aspect is a historic city, historic core. These two components are a very important part of our our cities. Almost every metros, first tier, second tier, third tier cities, and you begin to do the urban network analysis, you will realize that how important this five, the toolkit, the 5-component toolkits, and how they really decode your cities, and how they are able to generate different kinds of diagram, which is something that you see on the screen. And what you see on the screen, the diagram is about perhaps what the Mumbai city is about, where you have so many complex layers, and maybe each dot represent each precinct perhaps in the city. And when you have so many precincts, how they are networked with larger things. But if you get into one of the dot and do the analysis, you will find that dot itself is so complex. So this is what we call it metro, where this complexity of all and every types kind of is woven together in a metro city like Mumbai or Delhi. So when you do this urban network analysis, what we have seen is a tangible aspects. These are something that you can measure, you can observe, you can document. But then there are intangible networks. As I said, like festival, they come and they go. There are cultural, there are rituals, there are social dependencies. These are all kind of intangible. There is no immediate tools that you can document. You need to figure it out. How do you document that analysis? How spaces are used, how spaces are appropriated, how they are transformed, So this intangibility is something is very important part of this network analysis and understanding of spatial pool. You will find bazaar streets, various bazaars. You'll find very interesting phenomena that certain communities involved in that activity. Very often we just see people, we just have numbers, or maybe age group, maybe gender, but we don't get into certain aspects of their social and cultural background. And they create a very strange spatial pool. They bring in people. So if you look at, the very idea of the labor migration, worker migration to metros, you'll find this intangibility. And they make cities, more interesting and thriving, through their activities and their engagement and their way of appropriating cities. So when you talk about diagramming cities through urban network analysis, tangibility is something you start with, but intangibility is something you have to deal with. Without that, the first stage of analysis will not be so relevant. So many of you will be looking at your thesis project subsequently, through this kind of analysis. You need to develop ways in which you do what we call it ethnographic survey, the social and cultural analysis of the city. An ethnographic survey of the city gives or validates your tangible data, your tangible analysis. And that we'll see it subsequently in our next lecture. So very often the most reliable ways of understanding intangibility in the city is developing a dialogue. A dialogue means a survey. Dialogue means you communicate. Dialogue means you engage with people. You find a way of, documenting their conversation. What we call it oral history. History is not what you see, but history is what has been talked about. And you need to find a way in which this oral history is documented. Their rituals, their cultural systems, their habits, their behavioral pattern is all kind of a part of this analysis. And you need to really document through certain kind of method, what we call it ethnographic survey, and then relate that with how informality comes about, how occupation comes about, how social cohesion, how the various geographies are negotiated, the ecology is negotiated, and how this complex network comes about. So urban network analysis is not a simple fight toolkit. It's a beginning, but you need to move beyond this tangibility and engage with intangible channel. And this is the way your urban question slowly expands. This is the way your architectural understanding expands into an urban question. This is the way you begin to state that your architecture lacks sense of urbanity or architecture defines urbanity. And I think this becomes a very important part of your research. Maybe some of you may integrate with your thesis, and some of you will perhaps move forwards, understanding this intangible aspect of our city. Thank you.